Well, hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Dean, brought to you by our friends at Field Trip Health, ketamine-assisted psychotherapy in the beautiful country of Canada, Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, Ottawa. Go to fieldtriphealth.ca. Check out their services. If you're treatment resistant to depression, PTSD, and anxiety, real quick, 90-second quiz that you can take on the front page. There's a whole area where you can book online and you can get a free consultation. Listen, mental health is a big deal. There are really great alternative therapies out there that exist in the worlds of psychedelic assisted therapy. And at the forefront here in this beautiful country, my friends at Field Trip Health. Go to fieldtriphealth.ca for more information. On a bit of a podcast heater lately, I took a break. And I'll explain why in just a second, even though I've kind of explained why before. And so I'm limping back into some hot topics, some hot button topics. And there is no more hotter button to press right now than, of course, what's going on in the United States with Donald Trump and Project 2025 now taking over the government. It's a fire hose. It's a fire hose of rage. It's a fire hose of anger. It's a fire hose of deportations. It's a fire hose of cutting off aid. It is literally the installment that we're watching in front of our very eyes of an authoritarian government that is now taken over that beautiful shining city on the hill that the rest of the world, including me and the people in this beautiful country of Canada, used to call America. And there is nobody I love podcasting more when it comes to the ins and the outs than a gentleman who has been reading these tea leaves since 2016. A man who's been ringing the bell. He's one of the hosts of the Radicalized podcast, and he's also the host of an incredible Substack where you can get some incredible information on really why we're here. It's called Mind War, the Psychological War on Democracy, and it is in full swing. Please welcome to the program the man, the myth, the legend, and a man who is currently being sued by Kash Patel and Mike Flynn. Please welcome back to the show, Mr. Jim Stewartson. Hey, buddy, how are you?
Hey, I always love being introduced by the litigation against me. It's
but I find it really sets the table.
Well, it does. I mean, and again, my apologies that the crack house has moved back in to the ground floor. Now, not only did the crack house move back in, but the cops are running it. So,
yeah,
there's no one to go to anymore, and the cops want to take over your apartment now. You're the 51st state, brother.
Yeah, I know.
Welcome to the shit show, and my apologies to every single person in Canada. Sincerely, please take me up there and take California with you, please.
Dude, you might have to come up here. Like at some point, you might have to make a fucking break for it.
I mean, while Donald Trump comes after me, as the 51st state, I had a little Freudian slip.
Yeah, anyway, 45 and 47. Yeah. It's on.
Yeah, this is a historical collapse. Let's be very honest. I'm certainly not the first person to make this connection, but it's 1933 in America when Weimar Germany handed over power, right? A peaceful transition of power to a genocidal, brutal maniac who, murdered tens of millions of people. And that is, whether we like it or not, the historical pattern that we have just fallen. This is plagiarism. It's not even, they're just following the script.
Yeah.
And so down here, I'm sitting here like, well, if Germany was going to get out from under it before, the big war started, how would they do that? And that's basically the mode I'm in right now, is trying to decode, what this Reich, and let's be honest, this is a Reich, is trying to do, and forewarn and forearm people with the information to push back. Because if we don't, the second Holocaust, and I'm sorry to be this bleak, but it will follow. That's what they want.
Mm. Well, way to start on a heater, Jimmy. I mean,
hey, yeah, I'm just trying to live up to my my myth and legend or whatever. So
yeah. Well, yeah, the intro. Yeah, no, but you've been kind of,
Stewartson.
telling people about this for quite some time. I mean, I started to follow you about 3-4 years ago. Came to know you through one of the gentlemen on the Radicalized Pod, Hi-Fi, great guy. And you were this sort of mythical, like bell warning legend, talking about, the psyop around social media, the psyops around trying to get people to do bad things, bringing people into these groups digitally, hate groups, QAnon. That led to the lawsuit from Mike Flynn. You tried to warn the bell about, the other QAnon dipshit, Kash Patel, who just might be the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigations, coming up in just a minute. I know I'm watching you shake your head, but just to kind of give people some backstory, as I started to follow you, it seemed so crazy at times. Not you didn't, but the assertion that you were trying to make, which is, the propaganda that we're seeing and the fire hose of it and the disinformation that we're seeing to attach, some type of result for a certain group of people to core beliefs is very, very, very much, as you pointed out, Weimar Germany, 1933, 1929. And anytime you bring up those equations, right, you're vilified. And so, as I'm following you, I'm like, okay, this guy's onto something. He's clearly reading the tea leaves. This is your expertise. It's what you did as a job for a very long period of time, trying to get inside the minds of gamers, getting them to understand how to show up and build communities online. And so, through that radicalization process, as I've followed you, every single box that you were trying to tell people is going to get started to get clicked. And this is at the end of the Trump admin and then during the Biden administration. And you started screaming from the mountaintops in the last year of the Biden administration about what Trump might do and about what a Trump-led MAGA administration might do according to history, according to the tea leaves, and according to the conversation that we just had. And it's not only happening now, Jim, it's happening at record speeds. What's happening today, even with the cancellation of Medicaid and a whole bunch of different social programs. I'm watching videos of fucking Dr. Phil go on ICE hunting, migrant detention, arresting missions like he's a fucking cop. They're turning this into a TV show to the point where they're trying to force feed this back into the atmosphere to those people who voted for him, to say, I'm doing what you told me to do, which is I'm going to get rid of everybody in this country that we don't like. It's not just detention camps, and it's not just the arrest of illegal immigrants. It is tariffs on different countries. He's coming after all the NATO countries. He's coming after every friendly country, every ally in North America, from Greenland to Canada, all the way down to Colombia today. So it is like America has left the fucking building, in my estimation, to the point where this is now axis of evil shit. This is now Canada, the rest of North America versus fucking everybody, including South America and Europe. And to be able to make that assertion 5 years ago, I couldn't have done it. You were making it. You were telling people. You were warning people. But I want to know what the mood is like before we get into the minutia for an American like you who has been ringing the bell, because I took a little break, and I'm surprised you didn't after Trump got elected, because my mind was scrambled eggs. I told you that in a couple of texts. I'm like, dude, I can't text. I can't talk right now. I got to fucking figure out how to be able to manage my way through this, because it is so negative and so angry, and I can see what's coming, which is the death of America. But I want to know how you feel about it sitting there this morning.
Honestly, for me, I feel remarkably kind of calm. But that's only because of what I've been doing for a long time. None of it surprises me in the least. They wrote all of this down. They told us what they were going to do. They had a 900-page document that listed, and by the way, Project 2025 is just the first 100 days. These people they have no regard for American, international, any norms, values, or laws whatsoever. People don't understand that these are not normal personalities that are living in the world with us. These are people who have gotten so much money and power that they genuinely, in their fucking incel minds, think that they should control the rest of us. And, you know, until the population at large understands that this is not, you know, Trump owning the libs or any of that stuff, that this is the real thing. This is, you know, ethnic cleansing. This is going to war against your neighbors and building empires. This is mass death. Why are they bringing down the entire health system of the United States of America? The entire health system is now shut down. We have no communications from any of our agencies whatsoever. We're going to put a guy who blamed Jews for COVID, literally, in charge of the HHS.
RFK, yeah.
Who said that, you know, the only way you got through college was heroin. He did.
Well, he also said his marks were way better on heroin than they were off of heroin.
No, that's he touts heroin as a cure to his ADHD. They're shutting down our abilities, all of our protections, our defenses, our security, our safety. And there's a reason for that, right? Why would they do that? Why would they take away all those things unless they planned on using it, using the fact that we're defenseless? And, you know, unfortunately, the ideology of some of these people is truly genocidal. And I'll just state the obvious. Elon Musk gave 2 Nazi salutes at the presidential inauguration of the United States of America.
You sure he wasn't just excited?
Dude. When I want to know if a Nazi salute's a Nazi salute, I you know, I don't ask them, but I just watch them. I watch the Nazis, and the Nazis were like, "Damn, that was an amazing Nazi salute."
Right? Like even that Fuentes guy was like, "This is the best Nazi salute I've seen since the Nazis." And the Nazis are like, "I love that salute. Thanks, big hat tip to Elon for the salute."
Yeah, and let me tell you what, since the inauguration, it's been like very scary, like Holocaust, you know, type talk, you know, about me personally, and I can take it. I'm fine. Like one of these superpowers that I have now is that literally nothing bothers me. But, you know, it is alarming that, you know, there are literally thousands of people right now on my Twitter feed calling me a Jew as if that's an epithet, right? Just openly saying, you know, we want another Holocaust. That wasn't enough. Like all of it. Absolutely wide open, anti-Semitic imagery, the whole bit. And absolutely nothing is done and will ever be done. And the reason for that is because it's what he wants. He wants this. He wants this hate. Because, and again, let's just go to history. How did the Holocaust happen? People keep wondering, how could a civilized country allow that atrocity? Well, because Hitler and Goebbels and his henchmen built up this atmosphere intentionally, the exact atmosphere that I'm seeing right now. So until collectively we can sort of see through all of this noise and, you know, glee and lib owning and whatever, through to the actual goal of it, we're just going to keep slipping into this black hole, and it is not good on the other side of it.
Yeah, no shit. To your point, this is a tweet that you put up today. What Elon Musk has done, quite intentional. This website is being groomed to cheer for another Holocaust. If you aren't clear that Elon Musk is a Nazi, you may have not seen my mentions with, you posted one, and you are retweeted it. God, you are one of the ugliest Jews I've seen in my life. And that's saying a lot given how ugly Jews are. And I imagine that's just one in, a
That's
stream
a
of
mild one. I picked a
thousands.
mild
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why they're attacking me this way is because I have talked about my family history, which happens to be that my father was Jewish. He's been dead for a while. I never knew him, but he was Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandparents were Ashkenazi Jews who were kicked out of Russia a century ago. And the reason they were kicked out of Russia was because of the pogroms.
Mm-hmm.
The pogroms came, why? The pogroms came because the White Army, which is the leftover of the czars after the Bolshevik Revolution, who kicked out the imperial Russians. Well, those Russians were very mad about it. And they revived the protocols of the Elders of Zion to scapegoat Jews for the Bolshevik Revolution. And that's why my grandparents were kicked out of Russia and came to the United States as little kids. This was a century ago. They were little kids. And what happened after that? Hitler picked that up. Henry Ford picked that up. The reason why Henry Ford published the protocols of the Elders of Zion is because the same White Army sent an agent over to America, and this is true, look it up, Wikipedia, sent an agent, Boris Brazil, to Henry Ford and convinced him to publish the protocols of the Elders of Zion in the Dearborn Independent. And because Henry Ford was a tycoon, an oligarch, he forced his Model T dealerships, right? And this is the biggest car there was, right?
He was the Elon Musk of like the Industrial Revolution, right?
The point, right, is that this is the same thing, is that he used his power, he used what he had at the time, the dealerships, to spread this horrific myth about Jews. The same myth spread by the same people that kicked my grandparents out of Russia. That was then picked up by Hitler, because Hitler said in Mein Kampf that he was very proud of the great man Henry Ford, and that he validated the protocols of the Elders of Zion. That was in 1925. And Hitler then incorporated that Jewish Bolshevism, the idea that the Bolsheviks and the Jews are the same thing, that came from the same myth and the same people that kicked my grandparents out of Russia. Mm-hmm. So I'm not Jewish. I was raised by an atheist mom. My mom's family's Christian. I know more about Christianity than I'm not religious. I respect people who are religious. I respect their views. But because I wrote about that, I now have thousands of these assholes literally wanting to burn me in an oven. And so that is the sort of, fallout. And I'm a weird dude just because I've been through this for now so long. I can look at this objectively. I can look at it and most people, they take one look at some of the replies they get, and it absolutely horrifies them, as it should. And I just don't think that America at large has really absorbed all of it is on purpose. The whole thing is pushing us as far and as fast as possible down this really bad course of history. And then you go watch Elon Musk in front of the neo-Nazi AFD party, sitting there saying,
let go of your Holocaust guilt. Don't worry about it.
Stop feeling so guilty about your grandparents.
Fucking crazy.
So,
it's crazy because it's so open, dude. Like that's what I never thought I'd see in my lifetime, right? You and I are roughly the same age. I grew up in the shadow of a war. My parents immigrated from England. The stories of heroism, fighting Nazis. Grandfather landed on the beaches of Normandy. I've talked about it several times. Appreciate the freedoms that I have in this beautiful country, the same freedoms that you fought for in America, we fought for in Canada. In fact, we were into the war 2 years before y'all. And so
because we had a bunch of Nazis here. I don't know if you remember that.
But Madison Square Garden. You're like, this might be a good idea. Let's just kind of wait it out for a couple of years, and then someone bombs Pearl Harbor, and they're like, okay, we're fucking all in for democracy.
Yeah, I mean, Japan basically, saved the world in a way.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I hate the story of Pearl Harbor, but I appreciate the fact that America was like, all right, that's enough bullshit.
Thanks, man.
But that same muscle, that same military might, that same superpower is now being run by autocrats, oligarchs, broligarchs, evangelical assholes, the Coke industries, every single terrible person that you think would not want to be regulated and maximize their wealth, that sat on that stage with Donald Trump as he got inaugurated inside because he was afraid for his fucking life. So that's why I didn't want to have it outside, because he's such a huge pussy. But I want to kind of touch base on that temperature that you're talking about, right? Because again, you've been warning and telling people about this for a solid fucking 8 years, Jim. Like, I never thought I would see a Nazi salute on stage at a presidential election. I never thought I would see guys joking around about the Holocaust. I take it very seriously because I have very dear friends whose families have been lost, like you, people who have had a history where their families were removed from a country. The persecution of the Jewish people continues to this day, specifically in this country. The way that I see Jewish people being treated as a prop in this war, for authority and for power and for government, effectively. So when I think about the temperature as it's been turned up and the things that I see that are still allowed on Twitter, and then I think about the importance of Elon Musk's to him, the importance of his upbringing, I find that you can literally put all the puzzle pieces together with who the real king of the United States is at the moment and what is probably going to happen. And it all seems to be run from fucking resentment, Jim. Like, the idea that you've been captured by a South African oligarch is one thing. Your country it is being taken down by fascists that have complete control over the information that you get on your phones. Not just, you can call Mark Zuckerberg a fascist if you like. I just think he's a fucking asshole. But Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, I mean, those are three of the most important people in that country, save Bill Gates. And they have all drank the Kool-Aid. And to think for a second that any of these guys wanted anything to do with Donald Trump 4, 5, 6 years ago, and the turn in that tide, what do you attribute that to? Is it just everybody's gone like, okay, fuck it. I mean, the dude's so powerful and he gets what he wants. We need to get on side. Or did they see an opportunity to install him and fuck Donald Trump after the fact? We want what we want and we're going to get what we want because it's a meritocracy at this point.
I think it's just greed. It's psychopathy. I've written a lot about billionaires, and to me, billionaires should go away. As a class of people, they are almost universally psychopaths, and I mean this clinically, right? Because consider you collect $1 billion in your life, right? You've got $1 billion goddamn dollars. You can have anything the hell you want. You can live any life you want. You can retire and do anything the hell you want.
Yeah.
But instead of doing that or sharing the wealth or anything, you keep making money. You keep driving towards more and more money. You keep fucking your employees and your competitors, and you drive towards growth and power, right? What kind of person is like that? What kind of person wants power at that level for no reason other than to have it, right? The four people that you were talking about on stage, Zuckerberg, Bezos, then there's Satya Nadella, Elon Musk. It's $1 trillion. $1 trillion, which is more than the net worth of the bottom 25% of the United States of America. I'm going to let that sit.
Seems unfair.
Yeah. Are you fucking serious right now? What? I mean, one of my favorite quotes is from Voltaire. Those who can make you believe absurdities are those who can make you commit atrocities. Mm-hmm. It's a brilliant quote, and I think sums up everything we're seeing. But here's the thing that I want to point out about it. Who was Voltaire? He's a gay Frenchman. And he wrote that in 1765. When is 1765 historically? 1 decade before the American Revolution and 2 decades before the French Revolution. Right? And the only question is, he was just having the same insights that we're having. It's just he was just saying the same kind of shit that we're trying to say right now, back then. But it took 2 more decades of Les Miserables before the guillotines came out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Point being that this is not a new phenomenon. But the advantage that we have is that we have all this history. We have all these clues. We have all these maps. And we have the words and actions and behavior and history of the people who are doing it. We can decode this and watch what they're doing, see what they're doing. And then all we need, and I say all, but what we need is then a strategy and tactics to defeat it. But our problem is, generally speaking, in America, we have not accepted that this is a war, that this was a massive defeat in a hybrid war, an actual war, having nothing to do with politics, right? These people, as I said, they're operating outside of politics. Mm-hmm. And so when you try and solve a war, when you try and win a war with politics, you get destroyed. And that is what is happening here. And so my goal is to, and I don't mean in like a violent, armed way, but we need military strategy. We don't need campaign managers. We need psychological warfare.
We don't need a Facebook group. Is that what you're saying?
No, we need fucking special operators, and we need people who understand, the kind of guerrilla warfare that has been happening on the ground, and also the kind of people who understand the geopolitical forces that are driving this. Because unless you actually understand these forces collectively, you're going to be confused by them individually. Mm-hmm. And that's, so what I'm hoping is to bring, a little clarity to it. One thing, and we talked about this, offline, is the Technate. Because I think that helped. I think it's a very simple kind of illustration of how bizarre and how, in some ways frivolous the thinking of these people is. Because I think if you can pierce through it, the thing is Technate.
Yeah, Technate. Technocrats talked about this the other day in the podcast with another gentleman. We were discussing what technocracy is, what it was all about, and the extreme ties to technocracy and how they're very, very close to the Nazi ideology in terms of power in the hands of the few, give it to a few loyal experts, and everybody else, you just kind of fucking march along to the court to the beat of the drum of the experts in that technate. But to be able to kind of back that up a little bit, which I want to, is that, you know, before we get to the technate, before we start talking about Elon Musk and his relation to it, his trying to make his dead grandfather proud, which seems to be driving a lot of this in my estimation, I want to talk about, you know, the clarity that you offer in terms of all the little flares that we see, whether it be Medicaid or renaming the Gulf of fucking Mexico to Gulf of America, whatever. It's just so fucking stupid. But
and then Google goes along with it because Satya Nadella is one of those people in the trillionaire.
Sure. Yeah, but you can only see Gulf of America if you Google maps Gulf of Mexico in the United States. In Canada, it still says the Gulf of Mexico. By the way, I checked it today. So anyway, yeah, I got you. I got you, Mexico. I got you, Gulf of Mexico people. But the interesting thing is there are two things at play here. We'll get to because it'll matter on that map of the technate, if you will, that we're going to show that you put on your Twitter feed. The two things are at play here: empire making. Right? Empire making in a multipolar world. And I want to kind of break that down a little bit with you, because you talk about the Fourth Reich being here, or the Fifth Reich being here in America. That is what America wants. They want an empire. They want a Reich. They want to run everything, from South America all the way up to Greenland, the Bay of Fundy, our beautiful Hudson's Bay. They want it all. They want everything, absolutely everything. And when you tell somebody that, where you're like, hey, dude, are you paying attention? They're like, oh, don't be crazy, right? Don't be nuts. You're being nuts now. They don't want that. They're going to let Canada be its own thing. The 54 state stuff's just a red herring or a joke. I don't believe it is, Jim. And I want your input to that, how you started to arrive at the empire making aspects of some of the narratives that you have over at Mind War. Because again, another bell you've been ringing for quite some time.
Yeah, well, this is a cooperation. Let's not call it a conspiracy, right? We'll call it a cooperation between foreign powers and our own, right? Mm-hmm. So you mentioned the multipolar world, which is something that, Putin's brain, Alexander Dugin, has been pushing for 25 years. And that's the idea that liberal democracy has, created a unipolar world. And what needs to happen is that needs to be shattered into, a few pieces, so that there are multiple poles instead of just the one, globalist pole of the West, or whatever bullshit. And so all of that is an excuse for Putin to expand out and recreate the Russian Empire. By the way, the same Russian Empire that came after my grandparents, right? So he wants to recreate the Russian Empire, Eurasia, right, with Moscow as the third Rome. And so the deal that has clearly been struck between Putin and the Trump-Musk coalition is that they're trying to create this multipolar world. They're going to give Eastern Europe to Putin. They're going to give Taiwan to Xi. And they're going to take North America for themselves. And those will be the big poles around which all of the rest of us, are supposed to, follow.
Submit.
What's that?
Submit. All the rest of us are supposed to submit to the three major poles, which is China, which is Russia, which is America.
Yeah, basically. Mm-hmm. And so that's their plan. And conveniently, it matches up with Elon Musk's grandfather, right? Who, and so to be fair to technocracy, it's an ocracy, right? So it is ruled by technocrats. And the idea is that there are a few that, the experts in their fields should be running the government, which is not a bad idea as an addition, right? As a premise, I think that's a problem as well. Look at look at what we have right now. Look at the idiots that we have right now that are trying to run the goddamn government. So do I think that we should have more experts instead of the moron political TV people that, are out there? 100%. But like all extremist groups, they took it a step too far. And they said, okay, so that means everybody else doesn't have to worry their little head about anything. You have universal basic income. You go live your little life in your little bubble that we create for you. And the smart people will just take care of everything, right? So it's not, they had their weird little outfits and they saluted and they had all kinds of strange ideas, but it wasn't necessarily a fascist idea exactly, but it attracted a lot of fascists, a lot of very angry anti-Semitic people who loved the idea of destroying this sort of, liberal government that they didn't like. And Haldeman hated the liberal Canadian government.
Yeah, that's him right there. He was I believe, a Minnesota-born chiropractor, moved to Canada, thought he'd make a go of it. That's Elon Musk's grandfather. And I believe that's May Musk, Elon's mom, on the right as a baby, and her twin sister on the left, if I'm not mistaken. And he not only was kicked out of Canada, he was kicked out of Canada during the Second World War for anybody? Bueller? Anyone? Anybody? Being a Nazi.
Yeah. Well, to be fair to Joshua Haldeman, he wasn't kicked out of Canada. He was arrested in 1940 for, basically being a Nazi sympathizer. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. And it was as part of Technocracy Inc. That was the reason, but he stayed in Canada until 1950. Now, why did he left Canada? Because he was extremely mad at modern society. He hated Coca-Cola. He hated refined flour. He hated the movies, and he hated Jews a lot, like a lot. And so when after World War II, all the Nazis who were really unhappy with how stuff turned out, right, were looking for a place to go be Nazis. And South Africa opens up and says, hey, look, we have, and this was in their advertisement, a whites only paradise just for you here in Pretoria. And that dude then went, fuck yeah, that sounds awesome. That's for me. And I'm going to take my little girl over there and we're going to be Nazis free and clear. And all the black and brown people are going to be, where they belong out in the place. And I mean, and that is what he chose for his family. Yeah. Right.
He loved apartheid, from what I understand. He was such a huge fan of apartheid. He moved his family over there, had a plane, would take his plane around, bring his family around. And he really only ever enjoyed staying in whites-only areas and really loved the idea that a ton of money, a ton of influence, a ton of power was concentrated into what looked like it could be a beautiful technate to him, right? Like he was, I believe apartheid South Africa was sort of promised, hey, listen, white people are going to control everything. Don't worry about all the black people that we just put in these ghettos. We'll just call that a different place of the country. And we're going to continue to grow our footprint. And we're going to do it for whites only. And we're going to leave all the power in the hands of very few white people. And he felt that was an opportunity. And to your point, even Elon Musk, Elon's dad's going, hey, listen, her family's fucking nuts. They were Nazis from the fucking word go.
He said, which is remarkable coming from Elon Musk,
who also was
Elon Musk is a piece of fucking work, man.
Yeah.
He is racist as all get out. Like, so I discovered this whole thing about bars, which we could talk to as well, if you want, about being named after a Nazi
Oh
rocket
yeah.
scientist book.
Yeah, let's
But-
bring that up towards the end of
Yeah,
this
but-
conversation. But I want to get into Josh Haldeman deciding, hey, it's like
Yeah.
come to the whites only paradise. So continue, because this is an amazing little kind of genesis of what we're seeing and how it's playing out here.
Yeah, so Joshua Haldeman is over there with his family, and builds up a family. Errol Musk joins in, but Errol Musk, I've listened to him now on multiple podcasts, like in South Africa, and he is a like old school racist. He went on a black guy's podcast, right? But then on somebody else's podcast, on a white lady's podcast, he talks about how, we learned that black people can do complicated jobs like accounting, right? That's the kind of shit that came out of his mouth. And said that the reason why he sent Elon Musk overseas is because he was terrified in 1993 when apartheid, came down. And Elon Musk talks about this too, that South Africa became a crazy shithole, went nuts because of all the black people now who are around and had all these rights. Mm-hmm. And he's very open about that. But at the same time, in the same interview, he will talk about how May's family were the Nazis, right?
They were worse. Yeah.
But it's almost like he doesn't understand, like, bro.
Everyone's racist. Everyone's shitty here, dude.
You're racist as shit. Also, the guy's a complete pervert, man. He's like a weirdo natalist. So people need to start getting used to the idea of natalism, I'm afraid. If you've seen Elon Musk's feed and he's talking about the babies and the birth rate and how our birth rate is collapsing and population needs to grow and all this shit, that's natalism. A very Nazi adjacent idea that women are for making babies, and that's the only reason for humans is to make more babies. And if you don't make more babies, then you're not being a human. And the more you make, the better, which is apparently why he married his own stepdaughter.
Yeah.
And two babies with her.
Yeah, something to unwrap there, and it's funny, I don't see more of this on Twitter. Maybe the algorithm kills it because Elon wants what Elon wants or doesn't want what he doesn't want. But a lot of people don't know this, is that Elon's dad married Elon's stepsister, which was Elon's dad's stepdaughter, and put a couple babies in her. And I believe they're still together, if I'm not mistaken. So Elon's sister is really his stepmom, and his brother is really his half step brother is really his uncle. I mean, that is the weirdest fucking family in the world. It sounds like Elon got a double dose. So he got the white supremacist Nazi portion, and then he got the natalist portion and the pervert portion, because I believe old Elon likes to sling some jizz around too, if I'm not mistaken.
He does, and here's the monarchy, right? If you think about monarchies in history, what's one of the things that they did? They fucked themselves, right? to put it in
let's just call a spade, right? If you think about it.
They fucked themselves.
Cousin fuckers, sister fuckers, brother fuckers. I mean, they're all
right.
Yeah.
And here's the reason. Here's the reason, because they think they're superior. Mm-hmm. They think their genes, their special genes, right? Because they're so fucking smart and so much superior than everyone else, that what they need to do is knock up the planet with their own jizz.
You don't like that word, do you? I didn't have us talking about jizz on our podcast.
Who else did that? Who else did that? Set up a goddamn ranch to create babies of himself. Jeffrey Epstein in New Mexico, had a ranch where he had women that he was knocking up. He wanted as much of his DNA as possible. That's the dirty sort of, underground of all of this. And Elon Musk has this beyond anyone I've ever seen, is he genuinely believes he's created a bubble around himself that reinforces the concept for him that he is above the supreme, not the superior race, right? Not the superior ideology.
Being, like he's anointed almost.
The superior individual.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him so goddamn dangerous. That's why he is the most dangerous Nazi since the original. And he is a Nazi. Like, I want to clear something up. There's a tweet, I don't know if you saw it, that I point out where Elon Musk admits to being a national socialist. He doesn't say national, but what he does is he's responding to the auto union, and he's saying, actually, I am a socialist, but the kind that acts towards the greater good, and says a few other things. That's a paraphrase of Hitler. Hitler, the reason why they called themselves the National Socialists is because Hitler used it as marketing at first to bring the left over. But his excuse for it was, in an interview in 1930, was that I'm going to take socialism back from the socialists. And he used the same phrase that Elon Musk did, the greater good. Yep. Socialism is actually for the greater good. He called it the common weal, was the, as the sort of the oldie term that he used.
Yeah, and he thieved that, by the way, from Marcus Aurelius and Stoics, right? The greater good. That's which is a tie-in to Stoicism, which and I love Stoicism. I follow it to a T as it should be followed, where it's about character and acts for the greater good. They miss the character part of that whole equation. Yeah.
That's it, right? It's the greater good, but the greater good, as long as the greater good is a mirror of them, right? Mm-hmm. Like they see themselves as the greater good, and therefore everyone else should be me, which is why this lunatic wants to put chips in people's brains, right? Mm-hmm. It's why he's got this Mars LARP, is because he wants to think of himself as the ruler of humanity. Mm-hmm. And he's got $500 billion.
And you go Interstellar after becoming the most important. He is. I mean, say what you like, even though he's a fucking idiot, and he's a Nazi and he's a racist. He's done things on this planet, that nobody else has done. I mean, you got to put it in perspective where you're comparing according to time and technology and all that other stuff, whether it's space travel, whether it's vehicular travel, whether it's.
But he didn't do any of that.
I know he didn't, but I mean, he has co-op.
He really didn't.
Yeah,
he didn't do all he did with space. We would have done much better if SpaceX never existed. If NASA had been allowed to hadn't been privatized that way.
Yeah.
But by the way, do you know how SpaceX ended up with that contract?
Yeah, I believe through Dana Rohrabacher. Yeah.
Anybody remember what Kevin McCarthy said about Dana Rohrabacher?
Yeah, he called him a Russian plant, if I'm not mistaken.
He said that, well, more or less. He said that there are two people that Putin pays, Donald Trump and Dana Rohrabacher, quote unquote, in 2016.
Oh, right? when he had his mind, when McCarthy had his mind,
if he ever did, but when he said it, no, remember that was off mic. Like,
that's right.
Nobody, you didn't say that on a mic, bro. No way.
He did. That would have been a big mistake. but the idea that, you know, especially going through what we just talked about, which is, you know, it's Russia, 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 Nazi, 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 and then they crack jokes about it, you know, like Elon was cracking Goebbels and Goring jokes the other day, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude, all you have to do is come out and say you're not. But to your point, he is. I mean, you know, that the salute was that, he is that, he echoes that. And when you look at all the rich ornaments that make up that Christmas tree that explains what is a Nazi, you know, you add natalism into it, which you've brought up, which is fucking phenomenal. And then you add, you know, the idea that the technate. Well, no, seriously, I mean, like it all makes sense to me
because it objectifies women who I consider the far superior sex.
Me too.
As you know, as objects, and you know, it just grosses me out that, you know, that these men sort of consider themselves to be, you know, superior not only to other men but to women.
But didn't Elon say something to that effect, like about a year and a half ago, where he feels like strong male leadership is like a really, you know, in the hands of a few smart people? He basically was saying, hey, I'm a technocrat, but which comes with that natalism perspective. But that's what he's basically been saying. If you read between the tea leaves for the past year and a half, and since he purchased Twitter, which is, you know, this isn't a heel turn. This to me feels like everything else was a fucking facade. And, you know, you get $500 million, or sorry, $500 billion in your bank account, and you basically buy America through supporting this asshole. And there's a bunch of different, you know, ideologies and issues and people, libertarian people that are lined up behind Trump, evangelical America lined up after Trump, hillbillies with the IQ of a Kit Kat lined up behind Trump. So, I mean, you know, you've got faking patriotism, all the other things that go. But this is the perfect moment, right? This is the perfect moment for Elon to do what the way I look at it through this conversation like this, to really kind of finish off his grandfather's dream. Is it not?
Yeah. Do you have that map?
Yeah, right here. Let's bring it up.
Because look, let's briefly talk about the countries that they're fucking with right now.
America, yeah.
America, right?
Yeah.
So Greenland, the PM of Greenland got off the phone with Trump, and he was like, whoa, this dude's crazy and serious, and you know, we're gonna fight him, but oh my God, this is the United States against Denmark, who is, by the way, a NATO country. So when you start threatening NATO countries, you are threatening to have Article 5 called on yourself, right?
Yeah.
If you attack Denmark, all the other NATO countries, including Canada, if I'm not mistaken, have to come after America.
We have to respond. Yeah. And dude, did you see what France said today? They're negotiating or talking to Denmark about sending troops to Greenland, as is England. Yeah.
Good. You know, if you don't push back on this, they will do it, right? Greenland has an enormous amount of natural resources, and it will have more as the goddamned earth boils, right? Mm-hmm. Literally, like as the permafrost and everything, you know, unrolls, it's got all kinds of oil and other resources.
Lithium, Canada, uranium, all that shit. Yeah, gold.
I mean, we already managed to submarine Justin Trudeau, right? Like, and whatever you think about Justin, you know, he's a decent, you know, human being who just got completely, you know, like bullied off the stage.
He got run over. Yeah, he got run over by the hate movement. Yeah, big time.
And what's happening in Mexico? I'm just looking at the map. What's happening in Mexico? There's thousands of troops forming, American military troops forming on the border of Mexico.
Is that border protection, or do you think that they're doing the old little green men Crimea bullshit?
No. Yesterday, remember, there was a big, I don't know if you saw, there's a big hubbub because there was a shooting at the border. And every single MAGA was like, bomb them, missile them, go, go, go. They intentionally building up this anger at the cartels, at Mexico, right? These all of these narratives have been there for a long time, as have been the sort of, fantasy of attacking Mexico, but they're going to do it because it's in the red area. And I'm being very serious. In my opinion, there was a very simple deal struck between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. One was Mars, which we'll talk about, but to help me seek revenge for my grandfather, who wanted to create the Technate, and then they arrested him, and they were mean. And so I came back to Canada, because remember, he first came back to Canada, and then he illegally came into America, and now he wants to go back into Canada and take all the rest of this, right? So what's happening in Central America, in Honduras and Nicaragua and El Salvador? You've got crypto and oligarchy network state models happening, Prospera and all of these other experiments in oligarchy, digital dictatorships that are all happening in Central America. You've got Marco Rubio now, right, in Panama, threatening Panama with military operations. The Secretary of State official account, on Zitter, is threatening military action against Panama, right? The official government. And
another
then,
NATO country too, by the way.
Yeah. Yes. And then yesterday you get Colombia. And that confused me at first. I was like, why the fuck are they going after Colombia?
Oh, this is when Trump sent a couple plane loads of Colombian illegals down, and they said, "Hey, turn them around." It was like, we're going to tariff you at 50%, maybe 100%. We're going to pull your visas. All your diplomats are gone. Yeah.
It was right. And we were sending them over there on flights that were $800,000 a flight, right? For 80 immigrants. Now imagine the millions, and add those numbers up and see if this is ever going to be real, right? What it was obviously a propaganda situation. There was a whole bunch of very loud back and forth, Donald Trump being big man, and then them pushing back and big man, and finally they bullied this country. And it didn't make sense. Why are they focusing on Colombia? And then I looked at the map again, and there it is.
This is the Technate map. Yeah.
It is in the Technate. It is in the Technate of America. And the reason for that is because they want to control the Panama Canal and any potential interruption of, controlling the trade across the, entire hemisphere, right? That was there. That is the goal of this map. And that just obviously is the goal of Donald Trump magically, right? Donald Trump never said any shit, there were little things here and there, but he didn't have this plan before. All of a sudden it's like really clear what's going on.
So what everybody can't see, if you're listening to the podcast, that's Jim Stewartson from Mind War. He is a good friend of mine. He's been, again, ringing the extremist bell, the Technate bell. He's been ringing the Empire bell, the Nazi bell, the QAnon bell, the Project 2025 bell for some time. Mind-war.com is his Substack, and you can read all about this going back several years. But what we have on the screen in front of us, if you're listening to this podcast on Apple or Spotify, is a map of North America and South America. And it starts with Greenland in red, goes all the way across all the beautiful areas like Baffin Island, Canada, Northern Canada, Alaska, all the territories, all the provinces here in this beautiful country that I live in. And then there's your country, which is still red, and then red down through Mexico, red down into, is that Chile down there? No, not quite in Chile, North America. No, stopping at the top of South America. So, but bottom line is, this is the Technate map of America that you put out on your Twitter feed at Jim Stewartson, if anybody's interested. I know you're on Blue Sky as well. And this is Elon Musk's grandfather's Technate map and the vision that he and the Technate white supremacist, Nazi adjacent dickheads, the vision they had for turning all of North America into an American Technate or an American empire run by very few people. Tell me, crazy, if that doesn't ring a bell, knowing what we're watching now. But what year was this map put out? Do you know?
I think it's 1933. Like it, is so he started. Howard Scott was the founder of technocracy, and yeah, he founded it in 1933, and I believe this map was part of his initial pitch, right?
And it just so happens to be, a complete replication of the fight that America's trying to start with all of its neighboring countries. And it just so happens to be all the countries that Donald Trump and his administration and Elon Musk have been saying they need to turn into America into its manifest destiny, which is the empire of America. It just so happens that this happens to be Elon Musk's grandfather's map.
And the top where it connects to South America that's Colombia.
Okay, there you go.
That's why Colombia was relevant to me. Where I was like, wait, Colombia? What the fuck? Why are they? Oh, it's that red spot there.
Jesus.
Right?
It's just so prophetic.
It's
right?
all and and this, speaking of prophetic, should we talk about Mars?
Please. Yeah.
Okay.
Like
so let's talk. So there's three sort of layers of this, right? One is we get the North American Technate going, and the world now is a multipolar, some shit, traditionalist world run by oligarchs and dictators, right? Now, so Elon Musk sees that as step one. And step two is becoming multiplanetary. Now, this has been a fantasy of his, since he was born. And let me explain. There's a book called Mars Project.
Werner von Braun.
Written by Werner von Braun.
Yeah.
In 1948. And Werner von Braun was a Nazi rocket scientist, a very famous one, and a very good one, to be fair to Nazi Werner von Braun, who invented...
You got to be fair to Nazi Werner von Braun. I like it, though.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
And so Werner von Braun created the V2 rocket for Hitler. It was known as the Vengeance rocket, right? Because we'd been inventing rocketry and he wanted a bigger and better rocket. And so Werner von Braun created it for him. And it was this massive, thing, and killed 9,000 people in London. And also, importantly, killed 12,000 people in concentration camps producing this fucking thing in, a very, very short period of time. So after we defeated collectively the Nazis, the American government, in its infinite wisdom, decided to exfiltrate a bunch of Nazi rocket scientists into America in something called Operation Paperclip. And this thing was classified for 40 years, but it's as real as can be. 1,600 scientists were brought from Germany to fight the Cold War for America so that they wouldn't be picked up by the Soviet Union or whoever. So Werner von Braun was living in America in a nice, comfy life after murdering tens of thousands of people personally and being a literal Nazi. Anyway, at Fort Bliss, he wrote this book, Mars Project. And here's the story. There's a very famous man who this is before it was confirmed, right? It was in the National Enquirer kind of thing. because it seemed fucking weird. Like, why is this so similar?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so it was actually written in 1948 and published in English in 1952. I think it's relevant that it was written 3 years after he was murdering people,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It was right then. And
Project Mars was the name of the book, by the way. Yeah, yeah.
Well, it was, Project Mars, a technical tale.
Yeah.
The Mars Project, a technical tale, is the English version.
Okay.
And it tells the story of a Dr. Holt, who becomes a very famous person in the United States and demands that humanity become multiplanetary. And there are a whole bunch of reasons for this, going back to Russian cosmism and a bunch of other shit. But basically, they see he saw himself and his work as making humanity multiplanetary. So if something happens on Earth, we have like a backup planet. That's the whole idea, really. And so he wrote this book about this guy who demanded that we create a fleet of rocket ships to go to Mars. And this is, remember, an incredibly famous and accomplished Nazi rocket scientist. So this book was half like technical drawings and literally formulas and genuine sort of precursor to what Elon Musk is doing with Starship and SpaceX and all of his pronunciations that we are going to be a multiplanetary species and go to Mars is all a literal reconstruction of this idea. Now, let's go a little further in the book. So this guy, after setting up this whole thing, lands on Mars. And Mars is irradiated. It has 0.6% of the atmosphere on Earth, 1,000ths. There's no atmosphere.
There's no trees. Yeah.
No, and so radiation will kill you in a few minutes on the surface. So he, knowing this, von Braun postulated an underground civilization that was already there on Mars. Now, he then elaborated on what this civilization was. And here's an important bit. In the civilization, it was, how did they get around underground? Tunnels with fast, high-speed railway type tunnel things.
Hyperloops kind of stuff?
Kind of exactly like Hyperloop. Exactly like the Boring Company.
Yeah.
Like, why the fuck is he boring? Like, boring? Why is he? Because he's going to use us on Mars. I'm dead serious. That's why he created the Boring Company and he got the taxpayers to pay for his Hyperloop bullshit, is because he's experimenting with how he's going to recreate this colony on Mars. And here's the other part. This colony was technocratic, like it's very explicit. These are the experts of Mars. These are the people, the scientists, but they all report to a dictator who actually makes all the decisions. And the dictator's name is the Elon.
The Elon?
The Elon. Now, that's important. It's not a person. It's a title. The Elon. It's like the Swami or God. It's the Elon.
I just grabbed a picture from the page to your point, and there it is. From Project Mars. Yeah, there it is, Elon. And I believe Elon actually commented on it this week, and he's like, "Oh, that sounds cool."
Well, yeah,
that's me.
He said, "Could this be real?" And then I then replied to him with like 2 articles and a couple of clips of his father saying, "Yeah, actually." Because the thing is, like, I saw this, this very weird coincidence, right? Like,
Is it a real coincidence? Is it
is this a coincidence? Because this seems fucking weird. And so I went and started looking at interviews of his dad, who is fairly prolific on the, low end South African like grifter podcast scene. And so I listened to a few of his podcasts, including one with this real estate grifter guy where he was really racist. But he tells the story of how when he was growing up in South African apartheid, he had a fanatic hobby. He called it, he was a fanatic about rocketry. He was a fanatic about space. And he would go out to telescopes and look at Mars and shit and telescopes in the 50s and 60s or whatever, and learned about Nazi rocket scientists, including one named Hermann Oberth, who is another famous Nazi rocket scientist, and Werner von Braun. And he says clearly in two separate interviews, I have him saying this twice, that he named his son Elon after the Elon. It also happens to be one of his grandparents has a middle name Elon or something like that. And so between him and May, they came up with Elon. And he also said, and this is important, he instilled it in Elon, that he instilled his fanatical,
of course he did.
Hobby.
Of course he did. Of course he did.
And he goes on and on about how he was such a great father that he chauffeured his kids to school in his Rolls Royce, right? Like somehow this is the attitude, right? Like, this is why you should listen to me and why this is okay. It's because I was such a good dad that I drove my kids to school in a Rolls Royce. And he also said, by the way, May didn't even know where they went to school. That's the kind of catty shit that goes on in the Musk household.
He still takes crazy shots at her too. Yeah. He's been divorced for like 30 years.
Literally said it. But he, and he's this isn't like offhand. He's not making it up. Like, he literally taught his son that he's destined to be the Elon. So importantly, right? We've got two sides of Elon Musk, his family. His father was a huge fan of Nazi rocket scientists and instilled in his son the passion of creating a dictatorship on Mars where the Elon would be in charge.
And basically prophesied that to him, right? Basically prophesied that.
Yes. Well, he's literally invented by fucking Nazi rocket scientists. His life was like this. He wrote it down before Elon Musk was born, right? So that's on one side. Then on the other side, you've got his mom, May, that's Nazis. They're just straight up actual fucking Nazis who also happen to want to create what? A Technate from Greenland to Colombia. And so when you combine these two sides of Elon Musk, right, what you get is the worst case of daddy issues ever seen on planet Earth.
Yeah, dude, that is such a lighthearted way to look at it. Saying, but you're 100% fucking right. Like, everybody's a product of their environment.
To his daddies,
yes,
that he's worthy.
Yeah,
that he really is destined to be the Elon.
Right.
Like, the motherfucker takes ketamine and sits in his little cave and fucking tells people to go be #1 video gamer in the world and then let me take credit for it, right? He's got all these fucking weird ops out there to manifest this sort of, idea that's been been burned into his little Nazi brain since he was 50.
But that's why he has to buy things and say they're his. That's why he pays gamers to get high scores in Diablo or El Diablo or whatever it is because he's got this concept his dad germinated with him that you are the chosen one. You're going to Mars. You're going to be the most important person in the world. Fuck, it's in the book. I named you after the guy in the book. And just to give you not just the credit you deserve, I have that clip from Mr. Musk Sr., Errol Musk, the daughter banger. I have that clip for you, and I want to play it. It's a minute 14. For all of you listening to the Dean Blundell Show and my good friend, Mr. Jim Stewartson from Mind War, don't question this man. Have a listen to Errol Musk and tell us if maybe you're not Jim's onto something here.
Yeah, so we go back to my children's names. Elon, when I was a child, we used to build rockets, and we used to read the books of Herman Oberth, Professor Herman Oberth, and Werner von Braun, and they had these illustrated, they weren't really comics, they were books, but they had illustrations, and they were in German, unfortunately, but the adult at that time that we were with, he would tell us what the stories were saying about going to planets and all that sort of stuff, and we could see the illustrations and everything. And Werner von Braun's book, I think it was his, or it could have been Oberth's book, spoke about that the head of the Mars colony would be called the Elon. Now, I remember that, but I never thought of it as a name. I never thought it was a person's name. And then when May and I got married, I was quite amazed to discover that her father's grandfather or something had been called Elon Haldeman, which was really reminded me of the stories that we had. And so I thought, well, yes, I'd like that name for Elon.
Ta-da.
I mean, yeah, when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay. Done.
Puzzle
Right?
put together.
And he's not, you watch that, he's not making it up. Like, he's not, that's what happened. And all you have to do is read the book or a summary, and you can see very clearly that all of these details, from the technocratic to the tunnels to the fucking, naming it Starship, all of this stuff is just a reference. And I think the big picture, right, about him, none of it's real. He's never had an original idea in his life.
Well, he did have a Cybertruck, and we know how that went.
Well, I mean, and that's not an original. He looked at an 80s, rendering of a truck, and was like, "Oh, that looks cool. Why don't we? Can you make
high
that?"
As fuck, though.
Like,
can we both just assume he was high as fuck when he was like doodling the Cybertruck? But to your point, it's the only thing he's ever pseudo created. Didn't create Tesla. There's a couple of guys. Didn't create SpaceX. That was another individual. Did not create Twitter. We all know that. And legitimately takes credit for all of them as if he did. Did he go out and stump for money? And did he get a whole bunch of money from Dana Rohrabacher? And was Russia involved? Absolutely. But he's not a genius.
He's a great con man.
One of the best.
He is a great con man. He is not smart. And I need to make this very clear to anyone who's listening. Elon Musk is not smart. He is mid IQ at best. And I say this simply as somebody who knows something about the topics that he spews forth on. He doesn't understand any of them. He doesn't understand AI. He doesn't understand, the science of rockets. He genuinely doesn't. All of this is just juggling bullshit, right? He misdirects, he juggles, he threatens, he sues, he does this and that, all to fucking, circle around the fact that he doesn't know any of it. He doesn't understand it. All of it is about, moving him towards this sort of vision that he's got in his head. And, unfortunately, he's collected enough money and power around himself that he can effectively create this reality, right? What's he doing? He's creating an alternate reality, right? In which the stories that his father and grandfather were desperate to see, he is now trying to make
strange bedfellows too, right? Because Donald Trump also very similar. He's never created anything. He's a grifter, con man. He's like the fucking Billy Mays of politics now. I just, you've got all those people with like-minded interests. To your point, Elon Musk created none of those things, but he's been able to amass enough money that he can create reality. He can own information. He can own how you get information and the reality that you get from that information, where you literally believe everything that he says. They created something out of nothing with crypto. I watched Donald Trump make $58 billion the other day, and that was like literally through his buddy David Sachs. And again, that's a whole other ramp I don't want to get off of. What I want to get to, something you mentioned earlier, if we kind of come back to center. What was the offer? And when I say what was the offer, I mean, how does a guy like Elon Musk, who put it on the entire time until we really found out who he was, how does he go to Donald Trump and say, hey, listen, you need my $250 million to win. Here's what I want. Do you think there was some kind of deal where Trump's like, because listen, we all know Trump's not interested in running the fucking country. He's interested in looking like he runs the country and being the most important, powerful guy that tops every news cycle. He doesn't give a shit about running the country. That's other people's jobs. He doesn't care what they get. He doesn't even care what America looks like. So do you think there was a deal where Elon's like, I'll do it, but I want Canada, Greenland, Colombia, Panama. I want the entirety of North America. I want to create that technate state. What was that deal?
I think there were two demands. One, you will allow me to cut the budget and reorganize the entire financial system to get me to Mars. And in the process of doing that, you will capture all of North America from Colombia to Greenland. I think those were the two deals. And if you look at the inaugural speech, what did Trump say? We're going to land men on Mars, right? In the inaugural
expand
speech,
our nation,
into space, into Mars, something that
into Canada.
That dude would never think, would not. Well, and into Canada. Well, there's the two demands, one on mommy's side and one on daddy's side. I want to go to Mars, and I want all of North America to create a giant technate, and I want to reorder it so that I can, steal all of the resources and labor of America and make it into a gas station for my fucking rockets.
Why does that make so much sense to me? And then you bring up those daddy and mommy issues again. Oh my God. It's fucking amazing how the end of the world.
Dark, but it's all there. It's right there.
Amazing how the end of America came down to some South African who was mistreated by his Nazi / white supremacist parents, isn't
it? Daddy issues are a bitch, man. I swear. I'm glad I was just raised by a single mom. Didn't have to deal with it.
I would have that counseling would have been better for America. Had someone just got those stories about, you said, can you head Hitler off at the pass in 1933? And people are like, oh, if you would have killed him, or if you would have got him some counseling, or if maybe he had a dad, like all those other things.
Exactly. Or just had a friend willing to say, look, you got to put down the ketamine. Like, you're taking us all into your K-hole. It's time to put down the bong and
stop going to those Schneiser sex parties in Berlin. Dude, what a fascinating walkthrough. What's going on to your country and what will go on to our country unless we do something.
Sorry,
dude, it's not your fault. It's just stink.
No,
it's just coming out.
I feel that I feel compelled that somebody needs to say it, right? Somebody needs to acknowledge it. I'm not exactly apologizing for it because I've been on your side the whole
I believe
time.
you even. I
But
believe you've
but
even
I
put out a
but I
map about Canada with a couple of beautiful states in it, like including your state of California. And I bogeyed the map, gave you the hat tip, but bogeyed your map. I'm like, come on up. This is going to be a lot of fun, America. Come and join this beautiful country. You get all the
dude,
healthcare, and you're like, I'm in. I'm coming. Let's go.
California.
That's not
I'm
a bad
telling you,
idea.
California is it. We have the 5th largest economy. I'm going to pitch
Okay, talk to me.
California. We have the 5th largest economy on the planet.
Okay.
Right? The most valuable real estate
World.
maybe in the entire world.
Yeah, I like it. Okay.
Right? Imagine, and I'm sure we can
The
get
original
Oregon
In-N-Out
and
burger in California as well.
Or Oregon and Washington, we'll get them
They
to
will.
play.
I like
along
both
for
those
sure,
states.
right? We just, and then we can start pulling down on the East Coast and grab some of the people that
New Hampshire.
don't want to be,
Vermont.
down. I'm hoping it gets all the way to Maryland, which is the Mason-Dixon line, which is where I come from. But anyway, so I'm all for it. Just what I don't want is the Technate, and I don't want the Elon. That's what
I don't think many people do. But the one thing that scares me, Jim, I'll tell you this in an interesting way. It's like, okay, America's split in two. It's really been split into 3/4 and a third, right, or a fourth, and that fourth is running your country. But you can go and sell a bigger America that includes Canada without a border, a bigger America that includes, way more real estate, the second biggest landmass by country in the world. You can probably sell that to half of those 3/4 that are like, yeah, we don't like this either. And so that's the thing I think that kind of scares a lot of people. And of course, February 1st, we're going to get tariffed just for being awesome, which will be great. That kind of bothers me because it's going to decimate the economy as well. It's going to bring a bunch of industry in Canada to its knees. It's going to make you pay, way more for eggs. By the way, eggs are still cheap up here. I got 2 dozen for $9.99 yesterday. You factor in the exchange rate, that's like $5 for you, by the way. And that's, I think, the thing that bothers me. It's not a tough sell to an American to say to them, hey, listen, we know you hate Trump, but wouldn't you want to own a piece of Montreal? Like, wouldn't you want to go to a more peaceful country? Wouldn't you want to go up there? And listen, Canada's not buying your shit, not your shit, but that American shit, that MAGA American shit. If I'm going to really kind of separate you, beautiful people, my beautiful American friends that have a sense of decency from a MAGA American, which I have to do from time to time. But Canada is like, I think the last poll I saw, like 9% of this country, and the majority of those people are out west, and they just hate everything to do with the rest of the country because they never get to pick prime ministers because there's not enough people there. So they get so angry. But like 9% of this country is like, yeah, we'd entertain the idea. Dude, literally 91% of the 40 million people in this country would grab a garden hoe, some Band-Aids, and we go, okay, let's get a case of beer and go fight these pricks. Like not one person that I know, not a guy I talk to, and I get that maps change and stuff like that. Not a woman I talk to. If you canvass anybody about this or conversations in passing, not one person. Like, they laugh at it up here. No one's scared of it. No one's scared of Donald Trump. Nobody's scared of the caliphate moving north. Nobody is. Nobody gives a shit up here. The only thing we care about is wondering if you guys are okay. Like, and that's because there's a sensibility between America and Canada. Canada, America, we are friends. Like, we fight together. We bleed together. We eat together. We share trade together. We share the longest unguarded, uninhabited border in the world. Like 5,000 kilometers of like, hey, come on in, you go there. It's all good. Like, we love America. I love coming to America because customer service is so incredible. I canceled, to your point, I canceled the trip in the fall to come to the United States, and I'm gonna do my very best not to buy anything American. And dude, like 90% of the country feels this way. Yeah, I know you do, but that's got to be a weird feeling for you being a formerly proud American. It's got to be.
It's really weird. It sucks. You know, as you said, and I wrote an article called "We Are the Axis Now." I don't like being the bad guys. That sucks. I mean, we're literally we're threatening Austria.
Yeah.
Right? That's what's happening right now. We're threatening Poland. We're like, you know, we're doing the thing. And at the same time building up this giant anti-Semitic, like, I mean, so while you shouldn't be scared of America as a whole, you should not, you know, be under the illusion that somebody like Pete Hegseth, right?
Yeah, your new Secretary of Defense,
career
rapist, broadcaster.
But he's not just a rapist and a backup Fox host, right? He is a fascist, a Catholic fascist. There's a group of, and I have lots of Catholic friends, nothing wrong with being Catholic, but there's a group of them, Opus Dei, the Knights of Malta, like these extreme sides of it that, you know, think the wrong side won the Second World War and are still fighting the Crusades, right? You know, that think that, you know, what they're doing is anointed by God. And Hegseth has, you know, Deus Vult on his bicep, you know, which means, you know, God wills it, which is what they said in the Crusades. That giant Jerusalem cross he has on his chest, that was the flag they flew in the Crusades. That's why he said when he was hammered in a strip club, "Kill all Muslims," right? Because that's what he really believes. And, you know, so yeah, he's a rapist, a misogynist, and a dumb man. You know, but he's also
dangerously radicalized.
With no fascist cult that, you know, so don't, you know, yes, I do recommend, you know, taking everything with a grain of salt, but 4 years is a long time for these maniacs.
Do you think they'll invade Canada?
I think they may. I think they will definitely invade Mexico.
Really?
Dude, there's 5,000 troops already on the way, and there's going to be a lot more.
To the Mexico-U.S. border?
Yes. They are going to invade mark my words.
When do you think that happens?
Mexico is
a bunch of black swan events, and then that's enough. We're going to go in under the guise that they're getting rid of terrorists that are damaging the United States. Will take out the Mexican government.
There was a tiny little blip. I mentioned this where there was a shooting on the border. The entire MAGAverse said invade, like that. That's been trained into them, right? That, like, you remember all the, you know, it's the cartels. The cartels are doing all the trafficking, and, you know, it's the cartels. That is a propaganda, and don't get me wrong, cartels bad, boo cartels. Don't like the cartels, but it's
good one.
To be clear, but it is an excuse to invade a sovereign.
But that's what these
country.
Tariffs are to me too, right? You know, we're getting hit with tariffs on everything for no good reason, and they're like, okay, we're going to damage you economically. We're going to take over Canada by economic force. Trump said that. We might take over Panama or Colombia or Mexico by physical force. He said that. You know, you had a border shooting at the southern border. MAGA's like, yeah, let's go. And then you get some influencers, MAGA influencers in there. Maybe a Pete Hegseth goes, yeah, you know, we're going to take care of that. And then that's another little tick in the bedpost notch, right? It's another little thing that gets you there. And here in Canada, there's a shooting. And a lot of it is bullshit. Like up here in Canada, there's a border guard that got shot, I believe, in Vermont. If you remember, this is like a week ago. An American border security officer was shot a couple miles south of the Canadian border in Vermont by a German national that was in the United States on a work visa, one of those H-1Bs that everybody likes to talk about, a German national, 23-year-old female who did it. And not only did that information get buried, again, the same dog whistles, the same sort of bullshit where it's like, lock the border, invade Canada, build that wall, all that other stuff. And so, you're starting to see it. Like, you're starting to see these little things percolate around it. So that's why I asked about the invasion of Canada. Like, will they take it by force? Because, you cook up enough of these things and you can, weapons of mass destruction, George Bush. You cook up enough of this bullshit and you can literally convince people that you're here to, you convince people of absurdities. You can get them to do atrocities, to your point, Voltaire. But the economic impact that's about to happen, none of those, like I said this to a buddy of mine the other day. He's like, well, why do you think he's doing this? And I said, listen, I don't think it has anything to do with replacing the federal income tax with foreign taxes and tariffs. I think it has everything to do with, we're going to start here and we're going to squeeze the shit out of you till you say uncle. And then we're going to present the scenario that your tariffs are killing our Americans and we're just going to come take your shit. Same thing in Mexico. We'll present that narrative along with the cartel narrative. And by the way, a precursor for the cartel narrative, they named by executive order all the cartels terror organizations the other day. So what does America do when they tell everybody they're out to get terrorists? They invade those countries with terrorists. So, all the tea leaves and all the pieces are there for America to militarily take over North America, Greenland, parts of South America as well. To your point.
The Technate will, unless this is defeated, right? And that, that I think that's the basic thing that, like, our collective society has not gotten. Fascism, and that's what this is, right? Broadly speaking, fascism does not stop. By its nature, it never stops, right? It will always take what it can. It will always steal. It will always encroach on others. What you have to do is defeat it. You have to recognize it as an enemy.
Like, it's really difficult to defeat isms. Like, I've been trying to defeat Catholicism for a long time. Can't do it.
You can defeat a fascist movement. You're right. You can't defeat fascism per se, right? You can't defeat the fact that there are bad people, that there are people who in the broad spectrum of humanity are, to you and me at least, evil, right? Our problem collectively is that we built the system that sorts the evil people right up to the top, right? Because you got to be a psychopath. You got to be a complete lunatic to collect $500 billion. You have to be. So I think what this broadly is pointing out, we have a system that has lost its ability to limit evil. And until we recognize that, we have to do that, otherwise we see what happens. We're just going to keep going towards what ultimately happens,
which will be the end of America as you know it, the end of that reputation, the end of democracy. Democracy's over in your country already. Freedom of the press is over in your country.
It's more than that. It's genocide, right? That's, what these people are doing, taking down all the health, they're removing federal aid, they're taking they're
crushing science, getting rid of immigrants.
They want a completely unprotected population so that they can choose who lives and dies.
Well, Jim, that was a pleasant conversation.
As always, I know I am a bucket of monkeys.
No, man. It's been a long time, and again, I started the podcast with it. I had to take a break from doing some of this content because I just could not understand what was going on. Because I'm 50 years old and I grew up in the golden era. You grew up in the golden era of peace. My values and the way I looked at life shifted, and it shifted so incredibly. I couldn't. And I'll be honest with you, I was in a funk, and I couldn't Well, it was really, and I'm in Canada, right? And because I know what starts there comes up here. I know we've got a Maple MAGA movement that's very much in line with MAGA. I know we've got the same people that believe the same things that are being promoted by the Elon, by the way, and the Alex Jones and the MAGA machine. And so his name's Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative Party of Canada, is literally just a really hollow, cheap, cheesy version of what MAGA is, with people who are unwilling to be as bravely stupid as people in MAGA. So they dog whistle with words like Anglo-Saxon language, and they dog whistle with things like I only know two genders, and they dog whistle with things like let's give America what they want for a stronger Canada, as opposed to saying, hey, fuck America. Let's stand up for our own sovereignty, right? So I mean, the tea leaves there are lining up as well, and the chain link fence is starting to come together when it comes to, putting a real distance between democracy and the people that love this country. But it's a stink. That stink that started down there 20 years ago with Fox News infiltrated up here. Social media infiltrates up here. The MAGA movement infiltrates up here. Fascism and the love of authoritarianism comes up here. We have a heavily religious western part of Canada. So you've got the evangelicals who, God bless anybody that believes in any religion. I think they're all bunk. But, you've got a really easy group of morons to radicalize who believe in a sky daddy that they've never seen. And then they say, hey, this is your life's purpose. If you want to go to heaven, you're going to have to help us install a God-fearing prime minister into this country, and that's your guy. I mean, all of the things are the same. And so, when I think about where we're going and our job as Canadians, I say this all the time, Canada versus everybody, fuck it. We're sort of that last line of defense of Western democracy, and because America has, for all intents and purposes, fallen. And so, to be able to talk to people like yourself that have been, like I said, trying to warn everybody, hey, this is not going to be good. If you support any of these guys and all the alpha male bullshit, that's just going to come back and bite you in the ass. It is going to happen to Canadians here too. As a matter of fact, I watched a video today of this woman who was on SNAP benefits in the United States. Donald Trump froze all of those social programs. Donald Trump literally turned off Medicaid portals online to 50 different states. And this woman is bawling. She's bawling. And like apoplectic, where she could barely get the words out. She's like, I fucking voted for you. What are you doing? I cannot feed my children. I have 3 children. I cannot work. What are you fucking doing? I watched another video of this Venezuelan gentleman in Miami whose wife got pulled out of her house along with 2 of her friends and sent back to Venezuela. This guy came back to his house. His wife's gone. There's a note from ICE basically saying, your wife's an illegal. She's gone. Go fuck yourself. And I watched him beg Donald Trump. All of these people voted for this. Like, this woman voted for Donald Trump. This gentleman whose wife got pumped out of the country back to Venezuela because she was illegal voted for Donald Trump. I think there's over 4,000 people that have been repatriated. You do the math, 51% of them voted for Donald Trump, right? So, I mean, I'm even feeling bad for those people as I sit here today because, these are human beings that have been literally brainwashed into thinking that he wasn't going to do any of this, even though he said he was going to do all of this, and they still voted for him, dude.
Well, that is the pernicious, environment that we're in. And, unfortunately in marginalized communities, was there such a swing with Latinos? Because they were targeted very, very specifically. Univision was basically magnified, and more or less all of the Spanish speaking, radio networks, etc., all became propaganda, right? Targeted for that particular group. They were just lied to. And so, this is the FO part of,
FA.
The FA is if you don't actually pay attention to who it is, in some case, it's hard for me to assign blame to anyone who's just been lied to, right? If you're living in a reality where it looks like everything is blue, right? And then all of a sudden, One day someone comes and takes your blue filter glasses on that you didn't know you had on. You're like, oh shit, everything's red. Wait, that's what happened. It's like that. It's like taking the scales off their eyes. And at the end of the day, if there is going to be a revolution, peaceful one, hopefully, to bring us back to sanity, it's going to take a coalition of people like that, who have been lied to and are mad about it, and a bunch of people who are willing to let differences and bygones be bygones in order to defeat this threat. And again, I'm going to use that word, defeat, because unless you can never end it. You can't kill it, but you can crush it into the fucking dust, right? We crushed the Nazis into the dust for 80 years. And unfortunately, we just, forgot,
Well, we're stupid, and they called it something else, right? They called it MAGA.
Well, it basically, and one problem in America is that we, other than Pearl Harbor, we've never had an invasion here. We've never had, a military, we haven't had a Holocaust here. Our narrative about World War II is that we saved it. We fixed it. We're the ones who beat the Nazis, right? And because that's always been our narrative, and we've never recognized that, no, actually, we were this close to letting it all happen.
If it wasn't for Churchill.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if it wasn't for Pearl Harbor.
If it wasn't for Pearl Harbor, right? And Churchill is, I think, and I think we're probably going to wrap, but Churchill, I think, is a really good model here. We need a Churchill. We need someone who is willing to understand the actual fight that we're in. And Churchill was one of those people who got it, and did the hard things along the way, to barely, get us out.
Too many Neville Chamberlains, not enough Churchills. And I think that's where we'll leave it. You are an information Churchill, my friend. Thank you very much for doing this, Jim Stewartson. Dude, my pleasure. Mind War, the psychological war on democracy, his Substack, go to mind-war.com and join him there. He's got tens of thousands of subscribers. You can be his latest. And he continually tells it like it is. And he's absolutely one of my best follows, one of my favorite follows, and a better human being. And so please give Jim a follow. Follow him on Twitter at Jim Stewartson as well. You won't be upset that you didn't, or that you did if you do. And dude, all the best to you. I hope your country exists long enough for me to come there and spend some time with you in 4 years, or depending on how we do with this movement up here over the next year, because we got an election coming up. Maybe you can come up here. I can move some people out of a couple of bedrooms. You can set up shop here, and we can start some kind of movement from my basement.
That I'm down, man. Canada Antifa, here we go.
Thanks for doing this, brother. You have a great day. Anytime. Jim
Thanks,
Stewartson, ladies and gentlemen. Mind War, mind-war.com is where you can find him, and at Jim Stewartson on social media. There's a sobering look, huh? Yeah, kids. Get someone to put it together for you that's been following it for 10 years, basically an expert. 10,000 hours makes you an expert. That guy's got a good 100,000 hours in. So, and he's a Psyop professional. That's what he did for a living for video game companies for a long time. So he's been ringing that bell, ding-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding, and everybody's like, don't worry, he's going to be fine. It's just the Tesla guy. It's more than just the Tesla guy. It's way more than just the Tesla guy. Stay vigilant, everybody. Thanks to Jim for spending some time with us, and thanks to you for spending some time with us as well. As always, this podcast is brought to you by my friends at fieldtriphealth.ca. Field Trip Health Clinics, psychedelic assisted therapy. They are the biggest, the best here in this beautiful country I call Canada. They've been at it for a long time, and they are the #1 ketamine assisted psychotherapy clinic in this country. They've got locations across Canada, Ontario, Montreal, Vancouver, Regina. They've also got at-home ketamine therapy. And ketamine-assisted psychotherapy is showing some absolutely incredible promise for PTSD, for depression, for anxiety, for eating disorders, for addiction disorders, alcohol, drug addiction, insomnia, postpartum depression, and everything you need to know about anything to do with psychedelic assisted therapy, which is, giving you a psychedelic, putting you in that, taking you out of that negative default mode, and then putting you in a position so you can be really unwrap trauma, which is what causes every single one of those psychopathies. It's one of the most effective ways that you can get your life back. They help thousands of people. Their growth has been tremendous because they actually care about your mental well-being, and they combine ketamine-assisted therapy with real deep work. And that has to happen anytime you're trying to unwrap trauma, trying to get on top of what it is you are feeling, whether it's depression, anxiety, PTSD, et cetera, et cetera. And the only name I trust with my health and my mental health here in this beautiful country of Canada is Field Trip Health. Go to fieldtriphealth.ca. You can book a free appointment, discovery call right on the front page of the website. They'll call you back. You'll get a 15, 20-minute phone call with a nurse practitioner where you can actually ask questions in confidence, and you can qualify or see if you qualify for this treatment. I don't know many people that do. Numbers like 80, 85% efficacy rate for depression. Sometimes the relief is immediate. It's long lasting, in some cases for 6 months to a year. There are no SSRIs involved. You don't have to get on a drug schedule. They treat the root cause, which is trauma, and they treat it in ways that nobody else in this country is doing. So access ketamine therapy in Canada by going to fieldtriphealth.ca and check them out today. Thanks, guys. Paying attention. Don't forget everything we do. You can get at Crier Media. Go to crier.co for more information. Not only can you go to crier.co, you can check us out on YouTube, watch these live. Dean Blundell Show on YouTube. Google, oh no, Google's gone. Apple, Spotify. It's been a while since I podcast. Easy. Apple, Spotify as well. Dean Blundell Show. Please rate, subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Maybe leave a nice comment if you really enjoyed this podcast. I know I did. I hope Jim did. I hope you did too. So have a great day, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Be good to each other. Heads up. Watch out for fascism. It's a coming. Bye, all.